Marcus Harlow stood in his kitchen, staring out the window at the neighbor's house across the street. The blinds on the second floor twitched slightly, and for a moment, Marcus thought he saw movement. He shook his head, dismissing the thought as paranoia. But paranoia had a way of creeping into his mind lately, fueled by the odd shifts in his wife Evelyn's behavior. Evelyn had always been a creature of habit. Her mornings began with yoga, her afternoons were dedicated to her freelance writing, and her evenings were spent curled up on the couch with Marcus, watching whatever show they'd agreed upon. But in recent months, she'd become unpredictable. She was taking long walks at odd hours, laughing at messages on her phone that she wouldn't share, and spending more time than usual chatting with their neighbor, Scott. Marcus didn't mind Scott, at least not initially. He was the affable type, always ready with a joke and quick to lend a helping hand. But lately, Scott's friendliness had begun to feel invasive, even calculated. It was a Friday evening when Marcus's suspicions hit their peak. Evelyn had been out, running errands, 4 hours, and her cheerful text about being stuck in traffic didn't sit right with him. Marcus glanced at the clock. 7:45 p.m. The sunset cast long shadows across the neighborhood as he paced the living room. His phone buzzed, breaking his thoughts. It was a notification from their security camera app. Curious, Marcus opened the feed. The camera at the side of the house had captured a figure slipping through their backyard. At first, Marcus thought it was a delivery person, but the figure wasn't carrying a package. He zoomed in, his stomach sinking as he recognized Scott. "Why is he sneaking around my house?" Marcus muttered, his jaw tightening. He quickly switched to the interior cameras. The only active one was in the entryway, where Scott's shadow loomed briefly before disappearing down the hall. Evelyn hadn't wanted cameras inside the main living areas, calling them invasive. Now, Marcus regretted agreeing to that compromise. Marcus's pulse quickened. His instinct screamed at him to rush home, but he forced himself to think. He needed to catch them, not confront them blindly. He grabbed his phone and called Evelyn. The line rang twice before she picked up. "Hey, love," Evelyn said, her voice bright. "What's up?" "Just checking in," Marcus said evenly. "Are you still stuck in traffic?" "Yeah, it's awful out here," she replied without hesitation. Marcus clenched his fist. "All right. Drive safe." As soon as he hung up, Marcus checked the live feed again. The house was quiet, but he knew Scott was still inside. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. By the time Marcus arrived home, his heart was pounding. He parked a few houses down, moving silently through the shadows. When he reached the side of his house, he noticed the back door was slightly ajar. He stepped inside, his breath steady but his nerves taut. The house was dark, save for the faint glow of a lamp in the living room. Marcus paused, listening for any sound. And then he heard it, a low murmur of voices coming from upstairs. Marcus stood frozen at the base of the stairs, his heart pounding in his chest. The muffled voices drifted down from the second floor, too low for him to make out the words, but unmistakably intimate in tone. He clenched his fists, the betrayal settling over him like a crushing weight. He had spent years building a life with Evelyn, countless nights of shared dreams, whispered plans, and laughter. Now, those moments seemed like a cruel joke, their foundation rotted away by deceit. But Marcus wasn't impulsive by nature. He knew rushing upstairs in a fit of rage would achieve nothing but chaos. Instead, he backed away quietly, retreating to the kitchen. He opened a cabinet, retrieving the spare set of keys to Scott's house. Scott had given them to Marcus months ago, asking him to keep an eye on things while he was out of town. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus now. With the keys in hand, he slipped back out the back door, locking it behind him. His car was still parked a few houses away, but Marcus didn't head for it. Instead, he crossed the street and approached Scott's house. The neighborhood was silent as Marcus let himself in. The air inside Scott's home was stale, filled with a faint smell of cologne and leftover takeout. Marcus moved through the house, flipping on lights and scanning his surroundings. He wasn't just looking for evidence of the affair, he was formulating a plan. In Scott's living room, Marcus found what he was looking for: a stack of unopened mail, including bills, personal letters, and bank statements. He snapped photos of the documents, noting account numbers and addresses. Next, he moved to Scott's home office, where a laptop sat on the desk. Marcus powered it on, and to his surprise, it wasn't password protected. Within minutes, he had accessed Scott's email, scrolling through messages that confirmed his suspicions. There were dozens of emails exchanged between Scott and Evelyn, some mundane, others flirtatious, and a few explicitly detailing their plans to meet while Marcus was at work. One message, dated 2 days earlier, read: Scott, "Can't wait for Friday night. Sneaking around makes it even hotter. Winky face. Evelyn." Agreed. Just make sure Marcus doesn't suspect anything. He's been busier than usual, so we should be fine. Marcus's chest tightened, his anger simmering. He copied the emails onto a flash drive he found on the desk. He didn't stop there. He took screenshots of their exchanges, saved photos of their rendezvous, and even forwarded a few incriminating messages to his own account. By the time Marcus returned to his house, the voices upstairs had gone quiet. He re-entered through the back door, locking it carefully behind him. He made his way to the living room and sat on the couch, waiting. Minutes turned into an hour, but Marcus didn't move. He wasn't sure if his hands trembled from anger or the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Finally, the sound of footsteps descending the stairs broke the silence. Scott appeared first, his shirt untucked, hair slightly disheveled. He froze when he saw Marcus sitting in the dimly lit room, his face pale. "Marcus," Scott said awkwardly, his voice faltering. "I didn't know you were home." Marcus leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Clearly." Evelyn appeared a moment later, her eyes widening in shock as she saw her husband. "Marcus," she explained, clutching her robe tightly. "What are you doing here?" Marcus gestured around the room. "This is my house, isn't it? The better question is, what are you two doing here?" Evelyn stammered, but Marcus held up a hand to silence her. "Don't bother lying," he said coldly. "I know everything. The sneaking around, the emails, the plans to meet up while I'm working, you weren't exactly subtle." Scott shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Marcus's gaze. "Look, man, I didn't mean, don't," Marcus interrupted, his voice like steel. "You don't get to play the victim here. Both of you made your choices, and now you're going to deal with the consequences." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, please, I can explain. There's nothing to explain," Marcus snapped. "You betrayed me, Evelyn. You destroyed our marriage for this." He gestured toward Scott, who looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice trembling. "It was a mistake, one that I deeply regret. But I love you, Marcus. I made a terrible choice, but that doesn't mean we can't fix this." Marcus laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "Fix this? You think a few apologies will erase what you've done?" Scott cleared his throat, inching toward the door. "Maybe I should go." Marcus stood abruptly, his height and presence suddenly imposing. "Oh, you're leaving," he said. "But don't think for a second that this is over." Scott swallowed hard, nodding before practically sprinting out the door. When Marcus turned back to Evelyn, her tears were flowing freely. "Marcus, I know I've hurt you. she said, her voice breaking. But I'm begging you, don't throw everything away because of one mistake. Marcus stared at her, his chest tight with a mix of rage and heartbreak. You already threw it away, Evelyn. I'm just deciding what to do with the pieces. Marcus spent the next several days in meticulous preparation. The anger and heartbreak that had consumed him in the aftermath of discovering Evelyn's betrayal transformed into cold determination. He wasn't going to scream, beg, or plead for answers. He was going to make them both feel the weight of their actions. Evelyn stayed at her sister's house, leaving a flurry of voicemails and texts begging for a chance to explain. Marcus read a few of them, the words, "Mistake, forgive," and "love," repeated endlessly, but none of it mattered now. He didn't respond. Instead, he focused on his plan. First, Marcus dug deeper into Scott's life. He used the flash drive containing Scott's emails to gather more information, focusing on Scott's connections and vulnerabilities. Scott worked as a financial planner, his reputation dependent on trust and discretion. That trust would shatter if Marcus played his cards right. The first step was crafting an email, a carefully worded message that Marcus sent to Scott's biggest clients. It included screenshots of the incriminating emails between Scott and Evelyn, along with a brief message. Dear client's name, I thought you should know what kind of man is managing your money. A person's personal integrity often reflects their professional behavior. Please see the attached evidence for reference. Marcus didn't include his name or any identifying information. He used an anonymous email service and routed it through multiple servers to ensure it couldn't be traced back to him. Next, Marcus turned his attention to Evelyn. He didn't want to destroy her professionally. She was a freelance writer with no large network to disrupt, but he wanted her to feel the consequences of her betrayal in a personal way. Evelyn had always been proud of her social circle, a tight-knit group of friends who prided themselves on loyalty and honesty. Marcus reached out to several of them, inviting them over for what he called an honest conversation. When they arrived, Marcus calmly laid out the details of Evelyn's affair, presenting the screenshots of her emails and texts with Scott as proof. The friends were shocked, their expressions shifting between disbelief and disappointment. I'm not asking for pity, Marcus told them, his voice steady. I just think you should know the truth about the person you've been supporting. The fallout was immediate. By the end of the night, word had spread through their circle, and Evelyn's friends began pulling away, their trust in her shattered. The final piece of Marcus's plan involved Scott's wife, Claire. Marcus had always admired Claire's kindness and strength, qualities that made Scott's betrayal all the more despicable. Marcus debated for days about whether to tell her, but in the end, he knew she deserved to know the truth. He arranged a meeting with Claire at a local coffee shop, bringing the flash drive with him. Claire arrived looking calm but curious, unaware of the storm she was about to walk into. Thanks for meeting me, Marcus said, sliding the flash drive across the table. What's this? Claire asked, frowning. Proof, Marcus said simply. Proof that your husband has been having an affair with my wife. Claire's face went pale as she plugged the flash drive into her laptop. Marcus watched her expression shift from confusion to anger to heartbreak as she scrolled through the emails and texts. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way, Marcus said softly. Claire closed the laptop, her hands trembling. I always knew Scott was careless, she said, her voice shaking. But I never thought he'd stoop this low. She looked up at Marcus, her eyes filled with determination. Thank you for telling me, she said. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm glad I know the truth. Marcus nodded. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. By the time Marcus returned home that evening, he felt a strange sense of relief. His plan was in motion, and the consequences of Evelyn and Scott's betrayal were beginning to unfold. He wasn't naive. He knew the road ahead would be messy and painful. But for the first time in weeks, he felt like he was in control. The only question left was whether Evelyn would try to salvage what little remained of their relationship, or if she would let it crumble completely. Marcus had expected fallout from his carefully calculated revenge, but even he couldn't predict the intensity of the storm it unleashed. The first sign came 2 days after his meeting with Claire. Scott's pristine reputation began to crumble as whispers of the affair circulated among his clients. The anonymous emails Marcus had sent worked perfectly. Several clients immediately pulled their accounts, citing personal concerns in their terse goodbye messages. The financial firm where Scott worked began investigating the rumors, and by the end of the week, Scott was placed on administrative leave. Evelyn, meanwhile, was reeling from the social backlash. The friends Marcus had confided in weren't just shocked, they were furious. Their messages to Evelyn were sharp and accusatory, cutting her off without hesitation. "You betrayed Marcus, and you betrayed all of us," one particularly biting text read. Another friend unfriended her on social media and added a scathing post. "Cheating isn't just a mistake, it's a choice. And some choices come with consequences." Evelyn reached out to Marcus multiple times, her messages ranging from apologetic to desperate. "Evelyn, please Marcus, can we talk? I know I hurt you, but I'm willing to do anything to make it right." "Evelyn, I've lost everything. My friends, my home, my dignity. I know I deserve it, but I can't do this alone. Please let me fix this." Marcus didn't respond. Her words felt hollow to him now, too late and too contrived. But not all of the fallout was external. Marcus found himself grappling with unexpected emotions as the days passed. Watching Evelyn and Scott's lives unravel brought a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. He had achieved what he set out to do, but it didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. One evening, while scrolling through his phone, Marcus stumbled upon an old photo of him and Evelyn at the beach. They were laughing, her head resting on his shoulder as they squinted into the sun. He remembered that day vividly, the warmth of the sand, the sound of the waves, the ease of their connection. It was hard to reconcile that version of Evelyn with the one who had betrayed him so deeply. A week later, Marcus received a call from Claire. "I thought you'd want to know," she said, her tone sharp. "I confronted Scott. He admitted everything, your wife, the affair, all of it. I've filed for divorce." Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow for Claire. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," he said. "Don't be," Claire replied. "I'm not wasting another second on someone who doesn't respect me. But I wanted to thank you for telling me. You gave me the truth when he never would have." After they hung up, Marcus sat in silence, thinking about Claire's resolve. Her decisiveness was admirable, but it also made him question his own hesitations. Evelyn's pleas grew more frantic with each passing day. One evening, she showed up at the house unannounced. Marcus opened the door reluctantly, his expression cold. "What do you want?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. Evelyn looked disheveled, her eyes puffy from crying. "I just want to talk," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, Marcus. Just give me 5 minutes." Marcus stepped aside, letting her in. She stood in the entryway, clutching her purse as though it were a lifeline. "I've lost everything," she said, her voice breaking. "My friends won't talk to me. Claire's divorce attorney called me a homewrecker, and Scott, he's gone." "I have nothing left, Marcus. Nothing but you. You think I should pity you?" Marcus asked, his tone sharp. "You think I should take you back because you're... What would you do if you found out your partner was cheating with someone you knew? Write in the comments. finally facing the consequences of your actions? Evelyn flinched, tears streaming down her face. I don't expect you to take me back, she said. But I love you, Marcus. I always have. What I did was selfish and wrong, and I hate myself for it. But I'm begging you, please give me a chance to prove that I can be better. Marcus stared at her, his chest tightening. Love isn't just words, Evelyn. It's actions. And your actions have shown me exactly how little I meant to you. That's not true, Evelyn cried. I was weak. I made a terrible mistake. But it doesn't mean I didn't love you. For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then he took a deep breath. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, he said finally. What you did broke something in me, something I don't think can ever be fixed. But I also don't know if I'm ready to give up completely. Evelyn's eyes widened with hope. So there's a chance? There's a chance, Marcus said, his voice steady. But you need to understand something. If we move forward, it's going to be on my terms. And it's going to take a lot more than words to rebuild what you destroyed. Evelyn nodded, her expression earnest. I'll do whatever it takes, Marcus. I swear. Marcus nodded, though his heart felt heavy. He didn't know if this was the right decision, but it was the one he was willing to make for now. As Evelyn left that night, Marcus sat alone in the quiet house, wondering if healing was even possible, or if they were doomed to remain trapped in the shadow of her betrayal. The weeks following Marcus's tentative decision to give Evelyn a chance were fraught with tension and doubt. Evelyn moved back into the house, but their interactions were guarded, their conversations stilted. The intimacy and warmth that had once defined their relationship were gone, replaced by an uneasy truce. Marcus had laid out his terms clearly. No more lies, complete transparency, and counseling to address the underlying issues in their marriage. Evelyn agreed to everything, throwing herself into the process with a desperation that sometimes felt performative. But no matter how hard she tried, Marcus couldn't shake the image of her betrayal. It haunted him in quiet moments, when he sat alone in the living room, when he glanced at her across the dinner table, or when he heard her phone buzz late at night. One evening, after yet another strained counseling session, Marcus found himself sitting on the porch, staring out at the darkened street. The cool night air did little to soothe the storm raging inside him. Evelyn stepped out a few minutes later, holding 2 cups of tea. She handed one to Marcus and sat down beside him, her movements tentative. Thank you, Marcus said softly, though he didn't look at her. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Finally, Evelyn broke the silence. Do you think we'll ever get back to where we were? She asked, her voice trembling. Marcus sighed, setting his cup down on the small table beside him. I don't know, he admitted. Sometimes it feels like we're trying to rebuild something that's already been burned to ashes. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. I hate what I did to us, she said. I hate myself for ruining everything. But I still believe in us, Marcus. Don't you? Marcus turned to her, his gaze steady but sad. I want to believe in us, he said. But wanting something and being able to have it are 2 different things. I thought giving you a chance would help me heal, but all it's done is make me realize how broken I feel. Evelyn's tears spilled over as she reached for his hand. I'll keep trying, she said. As long as it takes, I'll keep trying. Marcus let her hold his hand, but the warmth of her touch didn't reach him. The following morning, Marcus woke up feeling a strange sense of clarity. He had been holding on to the idea of reconciliation because it felt like the logical next step, the thing he was supposed to do. But as he looked at Evelyn sleeping beside him, he realized that he didn't feel love anymore, only a hollow ache where it had once been. He spent the day thinking, weighing his emotions against the reality of their situation. By evening, he had made his decision. Evelyn, he said, as they sat across from each other at dinner, his tone calm but resolute. She looked up, her expression wary. "What is it?" "I can't do this anymore," Marcus said. "I thought I could, but I can't. No amount of effort or counseling is going to change how I feel." Evelyn's face crumpled, her fork clattering to her plate. "Marcus, please. We've come so far. Don't give up now." "This isn't about giving up," Marcus said gently. "It's about being honest, with you and with myself. I can't keep pretending that we can go back to what we were. That person you were with, Scott? That wasn't the woman I married. And I don't think I'll ever be able to see you the same way again." Evelyn sobbed, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the table. "But I'm not that person anymore," she cried. "I've changed, Marcus. I swear I've changed." "I believe you," Marcus said softly. "But that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the damage." He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'll move out tomorrow," he said. "I'll start looking for a new place this week. You can stay here until we figure out the logistics." Evelyn shook her head, her tears falling faster. "You don't have to do this," she pleaded. "We can get through this. I know we can." Marcus hesitated, his heart breaking at the sight of her despair. But he knew this was the right decision. "No, Evelyn," he said, his voice steady. "We can't." That night, Marcus packed a suitcase and left, staying at a friend's place while he searched for a more permanent arrangement. The following weeks were filled with paperwork, painful conversations, and moments of doubt. But with each passing day, Marcus felt lighter, as though a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying had finally been lifted. By the time the divorce was finalized, Marcus had settled into a new apartment downtown. The space was small but cozy, filled with things that reflected his personality rather than compromises. He started running again, joined a local photography club, and reconnected with old friends he hadn't seen in years. One afternoon, as he walked through the city, camera in hand, Marcus realized he felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace. Evelyn had been a significant part of his life, but her betrayal had taught him a painful yet invaluable lesson about trust, boundaries, and self-worth. He knew he would carry the scars of their marriage, but he also knew those scars wouldn't define him. Marcus raised his camera, snapping a shot of the bustling street in front of him. The image felt like a metaphor for his life, imperfect, chaotic, but full of possibility. And for the first time in months, Marcus felt ready to embrace it.